To discuss the real issues affecting the Tasman nations, this is Trad Tasman Talk, jointly produced by the Unshackled.net and rightminds.nz. Now, here's Tim Wilms in Australia and Dieuwe Boer in New Zealand.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a second in a week edition of Trad Tasman Talk, but back at the traditional time, which is on Friday, 6 p.m. here in Melbourne. It is the 10th of December, 2021. It is Tim Wilms, Editor-in-Chief of the Unshackled here in Melbourne.
And I am Dieuwe Boer, editor of Right Minds NZ, here in Auckland, 8 p.m. here, and a very, very hot day, very, very hot week so far as well.
We've had the weather turn good today in Melbourne. We had quite a few muggy and wet days, but the next week is going to be sunshine. It is. I've heard it's really cold and rainy in Sydney because the La Nina's hitting there, and we've had more floods this time up on the Sunshine Coast. So get ready for a wacky and wild summer here.
And meanwhile, in New Zealand, summer has basically been cancelled. All of these cringy ads that they've been running for the past few months to try and get all the teenagers vaccinated was the two shots to get your summer, 2 shots to do this and that, 2 shots to do all the things you love. And now it's like, shot, boom, boom, boom. And now everything's cancelled and you can't do anything. So.
Can you tell me whether this billboard that was I saw on Facebook is actually legit from New Zealand Labor? Remember to book your Christmas booster. Each booster gives you up to 6 months worth of freedoms. No jab, no job, no refunds. Is that real?
Totally. That was a very real ad. In fact, it was so real that the fact checkers had to go and fact check that it was actually like it might have been photoshopped.
I remember, what is it? A Facebook page that you're associated with got permazacked because of a photoshopped Jacinda slogan which said "ending child poverty through abortion."
Yeah, that's right, and got in trouble for that one. I think there was even an official media broadcasting complaint that had to go through for that one. Yeah.
Well, here in Australia, the teenage vaccination rates, especially here in Victoria, are almost as high as the adult vaccination rates. Which means, the next jab push has been for primary school aged children, the 5 to 11-year-olds. And so we had, earlier in the week, we had the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which approves drugs and vaccines, give their approval for Pfizer child vaccinations. They basically are a child-like version of the vaccine. They only have 1/3 of the dosage of an adult dose. And ATAGI, the vaccine advisory body, they gave their stamp of approval last night and recommended an 8-week gap. And Greg Hunt, the outgoing federal health minister, said that the national child COVID vaccine rollout would begin on January 10th, just before the 2022 school year starts. But it's not going to be mandatory for 5 to 11-year-olds. There's not going to be vaccine passports to 5 to 11-year-olds. That's what they always say in the beginning. But we saw in New York
absolutely.
last week. But, yeah.
Jacinda did the same. She promised, no, don't believe all the conspiracy theorists on the internet. It's not going to be mandatory for children. We won't force them to get it, which is the exact same thing that she said a year ago on the subject of the current vaccines. And it's all like, oh no, it's not mandatory. You have a choice. As long as you choose the right thing. then it's not mandatory. And it's going to happen no matter what here. So we do thankfully still have a bit of a respite here in that the MedSafe approval has not been given yet. They expect to do that sometime early in the year. So lucky last for New Zealand.
It's on this show 2 weeks ago, we began discussing the new variant. We thought it was going to be named NU, NU. They're the next letter in the Greek alphabet. But overnight on that Friday fortnight ago, the World Health Organization named it Omicron. They skipped G as well because they said they didn't want to offend China.
Culturally insensitive.
More the president of China.
And yes, I see the comments already. The moronic variant.
Yes, I also have you also seen that if you there's an anagram of Delta and Omicron. It stands for media control.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have seen that one too. Very good anagram as well.
Yeah,
it's weird how these things work out like that. Mm-hmm.
So it obviously gave our mainstream media lots of fear clickbait. So on the Saturday fortnight ago, or the Saturday after our last show together, the federal government introduced the Southern African travel ban, mandating 14 days hotel quarantine for returning Australians. And New South Wales, Victoria, and the ACT mandated 3 days home quarantine for anyone coming overseas. So they had to get a negative test once they arrived and isolate. And there's still these testing requirements. They have to get another test on day 5 and day 7 and not allowed into what's called high risk settings. And the first 2 Omicron cases in Australia were confirmed on the Sunday night. 2 returned travellers from South Africa. I remember the Daily Mail said Australia's worst fears are confirmed with 2 new discovery of Omicron cases. And New South Wales Health, each time they
breaking news.
Each time they kept notifying the public of a new Omicron case. This is an exaggerated version of their graphic. The exclamation mark is that's what they actually put on, but somebody jokingly put on the scream face, the anxious face, the skull and crossbones, and the high graph there. I mean, it's not that much of an exaggeration, really.
No, absolutely. We do have a resident Greek scholar in the chat here letting us know that the Omicron transformers, the variant is not pronounced like the transformer Omicron, but like the actual Greek letter Omicron. So
no one's pronouncing that.
That's right. It's actually named after a transformer, a planet-eating transformer, not a Greek letter of the alphabet. So the more you know, the less you know.
So after that, those 2 knee-jerk response. Well, there was a third, you would say, knee-jerk response from the federal government to push back the arrival of migrant visa holders, tourists from Japan and South Korea, and refugees, international students by 2 weeks. They were meant to start arriving on December 1. That's been pushed back until December 15th until we can learn more about the Omicron variant. We know quite a bit now, but that it's extremely mild, according to Pfizer, a booster dose should take care of it. And even though it's surging in South Africa, the cases are mild, the hospitalizations are low at this stage. The doctor who discovered it, Dr. Angela Katutsi, she can't understand why the whole world freaked out. The UK seems to have been the absolute worst.
It's another chance for lockdowns. And that's why the world is freaking out. Yeah. Meanwhile, here in New Zealand, it's very calm. We've actually had a reduction in case numbers this past week. Still do have the occasional death with COVID. There's about 60 people in hospital with COVID at the moment. But half of them, the media's wanted to report very seriously that about 60% were unvaccinated. But they actually did the maths wrong. And if you count the numbers properly, it's actually 52% unvaccinated. So be careful out there, because you do have a 50% chance of ending up in hospital, if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated.
We had, after the reopenings in New South Wales and Victoria, the cases halve as reopenings progress. New South Wales opened with a lower caseload, lower new daily caseload. They were averaging about 500 new cases per day when they opened up. It got as low as about 150, but they've shot up to, over 500 again today. It's a surge, not from Omicron. There was no new Omicron cases today. There's been like 2 Omicron clusters in the community. So 42 Omicron cases. And this is over probably a cumulative thousands of cases per week. Victoria, we had there was worries that there was 4 Omicron cases in the community, but only one of those 4 was confirmed today. The other 3 just had the Delta variant, which is the original vaccine evasive strain.
Yep.
But the reason why cases are rising in, Sydney in particular, is because of all these super spreader end of year Christmas events. Basically, people just enjoying life, and of course, that's still frowned upon.
Unless you're in Boris Johnson's office, in the UK.
No, it was a business meeting where it just had wine and cheese and music, and then the chairs
like you do at a business meeting. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I see here from Origin about Omicron. Yes, I believe that's kind of the point. It was either one of the scientists who did the testing, whatever, sequencing. That's why it was one of the scientists who did the sequencing said that that it was basically like a live vaccine, so you could just let it run wild.
Well, that's what our former Deputy Commonwealth Medical Officer, Dr. Nick Coatsworth, said if this is a more infectious but less severe, you actually want it to spread to have herd immunity. But there's still so many COVID zero cultists that they immediately called for international border shutdowns, state border shutdowns, and lockdowns as well, just to be on the safe side, because there's still this long COVID threat. So, I saw one COVID zero person claim that all the children who get COVID now probably won't make it to 50.
I thought that was the vaccine conspiracy theorists who were saying that.
What we've actually found in Australia, in terms of, because obviously there's been a lot of conspiracy theories about that the vaccines are designed to make the population sterile, but it turns out it's the what's called the NPIs, the non-pharmaceutical interventions, that are having a sterilizing effect, like lockdowns, people losing their jobs and businesses, because Australian fertility rate has hit record lows. So the fertility rate is now 1.58 babies per woman, which is well below the replenishment rate. And so the ABS Director of Demography, Beata Cho, said the record low fertility rate can be attributed to fewer births and birth registrations in most jurisdictions in a year marked by COVID-19 destruction. So there you go. The lockdowns are the sterilizing medicine.
And here in Auckland, or throughout all of New Zealand, we moved down to alert level red, whatever we're calling it now, the red traffic light system. According to the government's official advice, the red traffic light system means that the hospitals are overwhelmed. But as I said, we have about 60 people or so in hospital at the moment, mostly empty. We had leaked documents that now show that the Ministry of Health actually advised that most of the region should have gone to orange, and the South Island and some other parts of the country should have gone to green, which would have been the lowest level of any restrictions at all. That was the Ministry of Health advice, which was ignored by the government specifically to use the traffic light system as a repressive measure against the population.
That is quite a unique ignoral of health advice, because normally when I say ignoral of health advice, like not taking the health advice 100%, normally when governments don't adhere to the health advice, it's normally that their health advice from their bureaucrat is lock everything down really, really hard. But government's role is to take into factor all aspects of society and come to a sensible compromise. But here it was like the opposite. The health advice was like, we don't need to have the harsh lockdowns in the South Island and a less severe lockdown in Auckland, and have more green and orange. But for some reason, the government decided that it'd be better for society and the economy to just keep repressive measures in against health advice.
And of course, in the meantime, you've got businesses still closing. You've got places here, especially in Auckland. I obviously can't speak for the rest of the country, but running it well below capacity. Business owners still saying that they're going to go under next year if they don't get more free printed money, more handouts, because the government's basically not able to, due to government restrictions, they can't run at any capacity at all. So why they do this, and I'd say poll numbers too, but their poll numbers are dropping as well. Based on current polling, they wouldn't get, they'd only just barely be re-elected.
Have they got the national opposition got a new bounce with the new opposition leader, Chris Luxon?
Yeah, so the recent polling that put them almost neck and neck was even before the bounce. Before that was polling while Judith Collins was still leader. But obviously a big chunk of that was to the ACT Party. So we shall see if Luxon manages to draw back in a lot of the those who went over to Seymour side. Who knows? But you can see in the polling numbers that the spell for the Labour Party is starting to break a little bit, and people then, go over to the National Party, who are just as bad in terms of lockdowns. They want to do the same lockdowns, but the difference being they've now promised that we should go straight to green. Right, the Auckland border should be open tomorrow because that's what the Ministry of Health advised. We should be in green traffic light because that's what the Ministry of Health. We'll follow the health advice. Right, we'll vote for us. We'll follow the health advice. Those guys, they're not following the health advice properly. We'll do what the bureaucrats say. And that's basically been the line that Luxon has taken, which may prove to be incredibly popular. Who knows? And usually things that I don't like are popular. So that's kind of what I use as a measuring stick.
And who is Luxon? Like, give us a bit of background, because the National Party opposition has been through many NPC bland opposition leaders during the Ardern reign.
So he's bold. So he's one of these the bold guys. Looks like one of these villains from what are those movies called with the bold villains?
What is that? Lex Luthor?
Yeah, like one of those guys. So he looks like that. I don't know if he talks like it. I haven't actually heard to listen to much of him talking, but apparently he does present fairly well. He talks, like the common man. He's been the CEO of Air New Zealand, obviously our airline, and he did that for a while. Made lots of money, has 7 or 8 houses, is worth probably tens of millions of dollars. And he, I'm not going to be able to keep this up with the chat. I'll have to stop looking. The big hype from the leftists was that he was some kind of Christian fundamentalist, and he was going to put all the women in their back in their what's that fantasy that they have with the red dresses and the white hats?
The Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaid's Tale, right? They were basically like he was going to do the Handmaid's Tale thing, and they hyped this up. But obviously, like I knew already, as soon as he became leader, he goes and does the speeches. He's like, "Oh yeah, abortion. Yeah, I don't like abortion, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to say that it's murder. Don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. He loves getting the rainbow tick. Loves all the gay pride stuff. And then he goes and says, "Oh, actually, I haven't been to church in like 5 years, and like my faith is like really personal, just to me, and not going to do any of this. My faith has no actual bearings on anything that I do or say. So yeah, he's basically just your average like neoliberal NPC leader. That's what you would expect from the Lex Luthor villain."
Well, that's what Dominic Perrottet, the current New South Wales Premier, is turning into. Obviously, there was all that flutter, leftist hyperventilating because he was a conservative Catholic with 6 children, and must keep his wife locked up at home, pumping out babies. He and his wife Helen are having their 7th child now, but he's now been embraced by the Sydney gay liberal club who loved Queen Gladys. They call him Daddy Dom now. He helped kill Scott Morrison's religious discrimination act. And he's opening up a further inquiry into the gay hate clifftop murders of the 1980s. It's already been established his father works for the World Bank, associated with the World Economic Forum. Dominic Perrottet, he said he can't wait to open the international floodgates and let all these migrants in to enjoy the wonderful opportunities that Sydney has to offer. He wants more women to run for Liberal pre-selection in the upcoming by-elections and serve in his cabinet. He said one of the people he most admires in the world is Jeff Bezos of Amazon.
A fellow Lex Luthor NPC clone. Yeah, it's the same. They must bow the knee. In order to get power, they have to bow the knee to the beast system. It's always the case.
Now, if we thought that Jacinda and her government, the absolute power she has, couldn't get any worse, it did this week. Well, Jacinda has declared war on fags. She doesn't want the young people to bum fags when they grow older.
Yeah. So anyone who is aged 14 or under, will not be allowed to purchase fags in New Zealand ever. I know it's not like a euphemism.
Yeah, and I can see like this being a disaster. Because, first of all, like, as I just mentioned, like, how's it going to be regulated? Like an older person, are they not going to be able to buy for a person who's, over 18, but now banned from buying cigarettes? And obviously,
you're going to have in like, in 60 years or something, 70 years, you'll have like the last grandpa in New Zealand who's like 90 years old, who has to like buy all the cigarettes in the country, and like, he's like a multi-billionaire as he sells them off, behind the scenes to everybody else.
And this is clearly a policy designed to further strengthen and benefit the gangs of New Zealand, specifically Auckland, where there's the shootouts have continued. I'm not sure if you've heard any.
I can't tell the difference.
Up late at night. Any more have been counted as COVID deaths?
No, we have not had any more COVID death shootings in the last 2 weeks, but we have had a regular spate of shootings, apparently, mostly in South Auckland. Although I don't hear any of them. But then again, it could just be, you've got the cars, boy racers who drive up and down. You hear the backfires from their cars. For all you know, it's somebody's getting shot or a backfire, who cares? It's all the same here.
It must be a correlation between being declared the world's most livable city and having a gangland war, because when Melbourne was first declared the world's most livable city in the early 2000s, that's when we had our gangland war, where there was executions happening on the in the streets of Carlton, and even at an Auskick footy match. And then obviously then came the lockdowns to destroy the city of Melbourne, like what's happened with the lockdowns of Auckland.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the house prices have continued to shoot through the roof here as well. We had in the past month another $54,000 go onto the average house in Auckland. I don't know who's making $54,000 a month, but that means if you don't own if you're under 14 or under under 20 or 30 or maybe even 40 these days, and you haven't got a house, you can forget it. So houses, the housing market's gone up in smoke along with the cigarettes market. And I think, I have no problem with strongly discouraging smoking, and that is incredibly bad for people's health. We should probably ban all the sugar and ban eating too many calories and all of this important stuff. That's causing lots of deaths everywhere.
Jacinda and her supporters, they'd still be okay if a young person was smoking a joint, just not a tobacco cigarette.
You can smoke dope. That's fine. They encourage that. So you're going to need it to help relieve the blood pressure we'll be like down the line from you're getting your 8th Pfizer shot, and it'll be like your mandatory joint to go with it to help bring down your blood pressure. Write that one down, put it in the books. Obviously it is still legal to grow tobacco in New Zealand anyway, so you are allowed to grow it. The thing that does kind of annoy me is that cigars or pipe tobacco is as expensive or more expensive than cigarettes, which cigarettes are the really bad stuff. We should discourage smoking. Yeah, I'll specifically discourage smoking cigarettes. Make that clear to Dr. Foster. I'm all good with cigars and pipes and all of that good conservative smoking.
You want highbrow tobacco smoking.
Only rich people should be allowed to smoke, but it should be cheap for them. So that's my conservative position on that.
We in Australia.
So I shouldn't say rich people. I should say classy people should be allowed to smoke.
Our Australian federal governments have consistently jacked up the taxes on tobacco, supposedly to pay for the healthcare costs of smoking, but it's just a revenue grab. And so just with that, the illicit tobacco market has exploded. The Australian Federal Police, they're busting illicit tobacco growing farms, and they've showed themselves burning the illicit tobacco, which that would be quite the fire there. And there's also been ram raids of supermarkets getting not getting the cash, but getting the tobacco.
In other legislative news, Parliament did finish up for the year this week. So the last minute cigarette ban went through. They dropped 2 items from the agenda to get the cigarette ban through. They were going to pass a bill called, or known as the 3 Waters Bill, that would basically nationalize all of the water infrastructure from local councils. And they basically set up a massive bureaucratic organization that would have some token iwi representatives that would work with the government to manage all of the water and then charge the taxpayers for it. They delayed that until next year, hugely unpopular, as you might imagine, having all of your water assets stolen from you. They also delayed the bill that will be banning counselling outside of abortion clinics. So they want to set up these, safe zones around
exclusion zones,
whatever they call them. Basically, that you wouldn't be allowed to go and discourage a woman from getting an abortion, and telling her, please don't murder your child. We'll help you. And it's like, no, you're not allowed to. They're basically will want to try and ban that, but they have pushed that into the next year as well. So, temporary reprieve there. And the one other bill that they did pass was the sex self-ID laws. So birth certificates are now going to be altered or able to be altered so that if you wish to change your gender to male or female or to anything in between or one of the other 72 approved genders, you may just file some paperwork and change your birth certificate. And they also will no longer require father and mother to be recorded on birth certificates, so you can erase father and mother from your birth certificate to have parent or parent 1, parent 2, progenitor A, progenitor B, as I believe they did in Portugal. It's on that level here. So no more fathers and mothers. No more males and females. You can draw whatever you like on your birth certificates. And this was unanimously passed by Parliament. No opposition from any of the so-called conservative MPs from the National Party. 100% support from all of Parliament to continue the war against the biological gender.
Well, in Australia, the biological gender wars continue, and the last week of Parliament, we saw the Sex Discrimination Commissioner Kate Jenkins release her Set the Standard report. So it was this was, of course, commissioned by the government after the Brittany Higgins rape allegations, and also sexual assault survivor Grace Tame being Australian of the Year. Both of those, even though Brittany Higgins was a coalition staffer, both of them have turned into basically far left feminist activists. Brittany Higgins accused rapist Bruce Lehrman. His trial will be next year. He's pleading not guilty, adamantly denying the charges. So, as is always the case with these types of, you'd call them phishing reports, because they don't survey everybody. It's only the people who reply to these surveys. So, over half, 51% of all people currently in Commonwealth parliamentary workplaces have experienced at least one incidence of bullying, sexual harassment, or actual or attempted sexual assault. This is unacceptably high. And so it goes further down here that, there's 5 key shifts, and then in the detailed report, there's all these recommendations. One of them is to ban alcohol from Parliament House. I'll just go back to, because this is
support that one.
Yeah. This is always sensationalized in the media. This statistics about 51%, like including at least one incident of bullying. I mean, I had a guest on my show, Graham Young, who runs the Australian Institute for Progress, who said politics is bullying. It goes on all the time. But you see how in this summary, Kate Jenkins is lumped in an instance of one person claiming that they're being bullied, by including, sexual harassment is also vague as well. It includes something like staring, and lumping also that in with an actual or attempted sexual assault there, so to make it sound really bad. Yeah. And we also had the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They also got into the act, which said 1 in 2 Australian women has experienced sexual harassment in their lifetime, with inappropriate comments about the body or sex life the most common complaint. And obviously this is, again, like self-reporting.
I'm surprised it only came up at like 50% with including things like that.
I remember this is earlier in the year, because obviously the media narrative is that sexual harassment and discrimination against women, it only it's always worse on the conservative side of politics, and there's always these call for gender quotas in the Liberal Party. They don't focus on any of the instances of gendered bullying or sexual harassment, or even allegations of sexual misconduct in left-wing parties. They don't get the same scrutiny. So it's when this is in the spotlights, it's always used as a stick to whack Conservatives. But I remember it was designed to discredit the vice president of the Liberal Party, Tina McQueen. She's a grandmother. She was reported to have said in a meeting, "I would kill to be sexually harassed." Which is like that's also the other flip side of the coin. I mean, some women they like attention about their looks or a type of what would you call crude comment. Like some women actually like that.
Make them wear a sign.
What is it?
Oh, what's that? That's going in the sexual harassment report now.
But we had in the final week of Parliament, Senator David Venn of the Liberals. He was accused of dog growling at independent Tasmanian Senator Jackie Zambi, vaccine mandate passport zealot, and Sarah Hanson-Young came to her defence.
You have the power to turn this around. Why aren't you paying for the social housing we know that we need?
Order. Senator Betts, Senator Lambie, are you rising on a point of order, Senator Hanson-Young?
Yes, I am, Mr. President. I don't think it's appropriate, given what has been handed down today, to have growling and dog noises coming from this side of the chamber while a female member in this place is on her feet. It happened. I don't know who is responsible for it, but it is inappropriate. And if we are going to change culture from the top, that means all of us.
Senator Hanson-Young, Senator Wong?
Well, I did, because I in fact said who's growling, and I would ask one of the senators at that end perhaps to do the right thing and withdraw. At least fess up. Gee, you're tough, aren't you? You're happy to dish it out, not happy to take responsibility. I mean, really. Growling, Mr. President.
Senator Wong, I certainly did not hear anything. Senator Wong, I'm not challenging what you heard. I certainly did not hear it. I cannot ask someone to withdraw something I did.
Well, you can't really hear much what the heckling is in the chamber now with all those plexiglasses and masks. So David Van said he was not making growling noises at Jackie Lambie. He was just heckling, and his heckling was muffled in the mask. But obviously, you
growling
saw
into his muzzle.
Yeah, you saw Sarah Hanson-Young there because you will know her history of suing David Linehelm for defamation over remarks that he made, and also going off when National Senator Barry O'Sullivan said about her there's a bit of Nick Xenophon in her. And Penny Wong, the Labor Senate leader, also got up. She also, many years ago, got really triggered when a Liberal senator meowed at her when she was getting frustrated. But it was a Greens female senator who made the most reprehensible sexist remark in the chamber that week at Liberal Senator Holly Hughes. I'll just play the exchange and what Holly Hughes said afterwards.
Apologise to Senator Gallagher for interrupting, but Senator Thorpe just made the most outrageous statement directed at Senator Hughes, which you probably didn't hear, but in the scheme of disgusting statements made in this chamber, that surely ranks at the top of them.
Senator Small, I obviously did not hear the statement. Senator Thorpe.
I'm happy to retract. I just got a view of something over there that disturbed me, but I'm happy to retract.
Senator Hughes, Senator Thorpe has retracted whatever statement she made. I think we should move on. Senator Gallagher. Order. Order.
Thank you, President. I just want to unreservedly take back my comments that I made earlier, and I apologise to that senator wholeheartedly, Senator Hughes, and that won't happen again. So I apologise to the Senator and also the Senate.
Senator Thorpe yelled out at me and I responded to her that, she was a disgrace for pulling that stunt while we were discussing people with a disability. And at that point she said, at least I kept my legs shut. But what I took from it, what a number of my colleagues from across the chamber, Liberal, Labor, crossbenchers, that had I kept my legs shut, I wouldn't have a child with autism.
Wow.
So, honestly, I am dumbfounded that someone would say that, would suggest that.
So that really appalling remark, and it also sounds like a eugenical statement as well. But
they are all pro-eugenics. They can, their abortion advocacy always goes into eugenics, always, every single time.
But because she's a Greens senator, she's also part Aboriginal, so she also plays the race card constantly, and that gets a lot of claps from the far left activists online and in the streets. There has been literally no disciplinary consequences from her party. I mean, and if a Liberal senator said that about a Green senator, male or female, they would have already resigned from Parliament.
Now, in other disgusting behaviour news in New Zealand, we had another Patrick Gower incident where New Zealand's everyone's favourite comedian went and decided to hunt down an anti-vax GP, and we've got the clip here and people can watch it.
Yeah. So for our Australian viewers, the best way to describe Patrick Gower, I think, is basically a low-rate Nick McKenzie. He's one of the hosts of the New Zealand Project, isn't he?
Yes, if that's still running, I wouldn't even know if it's still running.
Yeah. So another one of to add to his greatest hits here.
Jody, I want to ask you about this vaccine certificate. Remember, she only took his blood pressure as a token gesture. You're giving vaccine certificates
Leave
to people.
me alone.
Jody, why won't you answer?
Because I'm not talking to any journalist. Leave me alone.
Why won't you answer our questions? It's very important. Why are you giving certificates to people, exempting them from the vaccine? Dr. Joni Gerard.
I mean, really, this is horrible, horrible medicine.
A doctor ignoring the rules.
It's we've had the same thing in Australia. These doctors who are deemed to be giving non-legitimate vaccine exemptions hunted down. We had a doctor here in Victoria, Dr. Mark Hobart, whose office was raided by the Victorian Department of Health purple vest unit, and it's basically because these people are targeted because they're in the mandator's mind that they're dissenting from what they want to impose.
Yeah, absolutely, and then that's what makes them a target, obviously, for all the journalists who are hunting down those who they see as dissenting. I did see a few red flags with this particular GP as well. It was mentioned that she was charging $80 for these certificates, and then as well saying these certificates were not official vaccine exemptions. They were just she'd write a piece of paper that she'd say don't believe the vaccine is right for this patient, sign her name at the bottom, charge them $80 for it, and then they would then have to sell this on to whatever situation they were in. They'd have to try and get out of it. I think that should be careful to hear, and that she was probably giving a lot of false hope to these people at great expense, rather than actually helping them through either whatever official process that you can go through to get an exemption in New Zealand, which whether or not you can get one, don't actually know. A lot of people say, it's set up so that you can't get one. But if you watch the interview, if you watch her words, don't pay any attention to Patrick Gower's spin. She says, I've applied for one of these exemptions. I haven't heard back yet, basically. So it's not that she was declined or that anybody else I know who has been declined. It's just that they are on hold. So what she was doing there was probably not particularly helpful to these people. But then what you see the media doing, of course, is that they don't want to help these people who are under these mandates, who are in great distress. They're in great mental anguish. Their lives are being destroyed, and then there's no journalist interested in helping these people, right? They want to crush those people, right? They want to destroy them, and they're just using this opportunity to get to those people and to break them down. So I think the GP in this instance seemed to be there seem to be some red flags, and we haven't seen the whole story yet. I don't know if we will. And there seems to be some disagreement about whether or not GPs can actually issue legit exemptions at the moment. I saw somebody comment saying that they had this was Victoria O'Brien who had said she had called the Ministry of Health and asked after many hours on the phone and actually been told, no, GPs can still issue legit exemptions until the 13th of December. But if you watch the clip of the GP, it doesn't seem like the GP knows that or is actually trying to do that. But certainly it seems like in the next 3 days, only the official exemptions, like the official legit exemptions, are issued by Ashley Bloomfield. He has to have his signature on it. And if somebody wants to try and get that signature on it, it will be a great process to follow. So far, I haven't found anybody who actually wants to go through that process. But it, certainly, like that GP said, she had applied for that process, so they'll have a backlog. Good luck, funneling people's. People want an exemption, and they've got to go and examine every single case through this panel. People have probably already completely stuffed up and up that system, which could be a good stalling tactic for these people. So when people come to me for help, I try and find them the official help to get them through. And this GP who did have an American accent, I don't see what she was doing that would have been overly helpful to these people, except it being expensive and possibly getting them into trouble with their employers, because the Ministry of Health gets complaints, and obviously that goes through to the media, and the media go and raid these, go and harass these people because complaints are made against these people, issuing exemptions, whether or not they're issuing exemptions seems to be up in the air. So, but you're very, very sad, obviously, for the people who are being crushed by this, whose lives are being destroyed, who are suffering, from depression and worse because of what the government is doing to them. They've got the boot of tyranny on their necks, and we should absolutely do what we can to help them in the best way possible.
Well, in New South Wales, they're still committing to lifting the vaccinated economy on December 15th. I would say don't count on it until it actually happens.
Yeah, certainly.
In Victoria, Dan Andrews, he's softened his vow that the vaccinated economy is going to continue throughout 2022. There's hints that may end in mid-January. He got his permanent pandemic legislation through the Parliament after he got another independent or crossbencher, I should say, on board, Rod Barton of the Transport Matters Party. So just before Dan has gone on holidays for the summer period, even though he had 3 months off after he fell down the stairs. I mean, obviously, I'm glad to see the back of him throughout the summer, but I sort of think also, what a bludger, taking more time off. So he's
getting his revenge
under the new, the new, framework, as he calls it, that'll come into effect at 11:59 p.m. Wednesday, 15th of December. Nothing will really change, but it's just basically, it's literally is, as it says, a new framework where he
the new framework.
Yeah.
The perpetual pandemic framework.
Yes. There's after this, he doesn't have to go back to the Parliament to have a renewal. His government's supposed to table health advice about why they're declaring the pandemic and having public health orders, even though they've hardly done that throughout the past 20 months. We also had tragically this week, because these vaccine mandates have destroyed a lot of people. A woman tried to set herself on fire because of vaccine mandates. So she parked her car on a street in Werribee, doused herself in petrol before placing the sign on written plea. Police attendant tried to talk her down. They set herself on fire, telling the police that she had nothing left.
Yeah.
So
and I can
is...
reiterate here as well, you know, the official health advice that was leaked in New Zealand was that the health officials did not recommend this. They said do not do the vaccine.
The same with our ATAGI vaccine advisory body as well.
And this was specifically done by politicians to crush these people, and in some cases, as we see, to kill them. Yeah.
And well, we also had a report by the Victorian Ombudsman this week, Deborah Glass, who has been very good at holding this government to account. She was appointed in 2014, before the Andrews government was elected. She has a 10-year term, so she'll be around for another 3 years. She released a report into the Victorian border crossing permit system, calling the exemption process from people travelling from red zones back into Victoria. She called the exemption process borderline inhumane, how many people were not granted rightful compassionate entry grounds. And well, Dan Andrews, he continues his love of mandates by having gender quotas to increase female participation in the construction industry. It'll begin next year. The building equality policies. So we'll see action taken against those who did not comply with the quotas from January 2024. So it'll apply to new government projects to the value of 20 million there. So, yep.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't watch YouTube compilations of like bridges and buildings built by women. Don't search for that on YouTube.
We'll find out in about 10 years just how good these diverse
diversity quotas
and roads and bridges and railroads are. Now,
yeah, I'm sure everybody feels much safer knowing their critical infrastructure is built by diversity hires.
Now, obviously, the Victorian government has made many cruel decisions throughout the pandemic, but so have other state governments. The Queensland state government, they've also had cruel border policies. They're going to be reopening on December 13th to what's it called, hotspots, to the double vaccinated. So they have to have a negative test before they come, and also 5 days after this. I'll put up this graphic again. This is also basically not just the Queensland border crossing procedure, but also when South Australia and the northern, South Australia is already open. They didn't. They got the wobbles a bit with Omicron, but have kept the borders open. But yeah, just more tests. Same with Northern Territory opening on the 20th, and also Tasmania on the 15th as well. So yes, there's free travel between Victoria, New South Wales and the ACT with no testing requirement. But yeah, if you want to go to one of these formerly zero states, that's basically the entry procedure. And Queensland is going to be introducing a vaccinated economy, which includes restrictions on organ transplants. I'll just play this.
Of course, a bitter pill to swallow this morning for the unvaccinated. Queenslanders needing life-saving surgery. It's been revealed that patients will be denied that procedure unless they're fully vaccinated. Many say they're not anti-vax, they're just fearful of the side effects. That policy won't be re-evaluated until February next year.
Take the vaccine or we'll let you die.
Well, take the vaccine or you could possibly starve. As Queensland is not going to be locking out the unvaccinated from supermarkets, but supermarkets, pharmacies and other essential businesses will have the ability to mandate have their own vaccine passport policy, according to the state small business minister. So it'll be at the discretion of private companies whether you're going to starve if you don't take a procedure.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Suddenly our governments are very libertarian, aren't they? Though, we shall use the private companies to crush it.
And the WA hard border cruelty continues with this tragic story.
A grieving mother and father from Williamstown are pleading for Western Australia to relax its border restrictions after being denied entry to identify the body of their 20-year-old son. But Premier Mark McGowan is standing firm, insisting the harsh rules are about protecting his state.
A mourning Melbourne family, locked out and let down.
The fact that he was lying in this cold morgue by himself, and I mean, God, it just killed us.
Jordan Grace had been living out his rugby dream in Perth. He was 3 days shy of his 21st birthday when he took his own life. His grieving parents tried to enter WA on compassionate grounds, but their appeal was denied.
And I put on the application quite clearly why we were going there, and it was just to go and identify our son, my baby.
Despite being double vaccinated, the Grace family was told they would need to spend 14 days in hotel quarantine before they could see their son.
There was no ifs or buts, it was just how it was.
Our son's dead in Perth and we can't even get over there to go and get him.
In the same country.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Western Australia's border has been closed to Victoria since July. When asked why the family wasn't granted a compassionate exemption, Premier Mark McGowan offered this explanation.
Because we don't want to end up in the situation New South Wales and Victoria have ended up in.
McGowan said police are responsible for border entries.
I do not accept that we've done this in a way that lacks compassion.
The heartbreaking tale has revived calls for WA to relax border restrictions. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews offered his condolences.
My thoughts and prayers are with them. Being frank, I don't know that I can necessarily influence the policies of the West Australian government.
It was 2 weeks before Jordan's body was returned to Melbourne. Katie and Steve had to rely on the generosity of others to get their son's belongings home. Natalie Yanides for 10 News First.
And if you or someone you know is experiencing a personal crisis, there is support. Call the Lifeline 24-hour crisis hotline on 13 11 14.
Yeah, so this is just one of many stories of government cruelty throughout the pandemic. In fact, Amnesty International has even done a report on, well, the inhumane aspect of WA's hard border closure.
Yeah, there's nothing much to add to the comments in the chat here. I mean, this is just evil. There's nothing more to be said to that.
But they still love Mark McGowan, the Western Australians, believing that he's kept them safe from the Kung flu and the
people will submit to anything if it's just for your safety, and they'll submit to anything.
Flu, the Vinda flu, or what is also now called the Mandela flu. So that's what they believe over there. In fact, a marketer over in Perth, Mark Wong, created a limited edition State Daddy-O cereal in the form of Fruit Loops, and on the back there's
at least Fruit Loops are appropriate for this.
Yeah, a maze on the back where you have to escape the WA hard border. That's the breakfast maze on the back of the Daddy-O Fruit Loops. So it's actually, if you look in deeper, it's actually a very deep, you would say, satire, black satire of the WA hard border policy, and calling Mark McGowan a Fruit Loop.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. And as always, it's just the people love it. Same thing here. And no matter the level of cruelty or the inhumanity or the deepness of the evil, people love it because we're safe. We're safe. That's the only thing that matters. That's the tragedy of the whole thing.
We've gone over the hour, so we might just go through quickly the other reports that we've got. So we've got an economics, sport, and media report. We might. Where should we start first?
I already did a bit of the economy report in terms of the house prices here in New Zealand. There's still the economy here is going to be crushed next year in many ways. We don't know for sure if the government will keep printing. Suddenly they've become a bit tight-fisted, and Grant Robertson is not being overly generous with his free money that he's printed, his 50 billion worth.
It's not free.
We've actually seen the 2-year interest rates drop by 0.2%, 20 base points, as they like to call it. Interest rates rose quite sharply to what they were calling sort of pre-pandemic levels, but we're starting to see them drop again as house prices keep going up, as businesses keep going under. So it's certainly looking pretty rough going into the end of the year for us here in New Zealand.
Well, our interest rates in Australia, the RBA has kept them at a record low of 0.1%. Obviously, the supply chain, I shouldn't say issues, but crisis plaguing the world is threatening to impact Australia, including our freight fleet, because of the AdBlue diesel exhaust fluid that's in short supply, and there could even be a shortage of beer. Carlton and United Breweries have placed purchase limits on Corona beer because of the worldwide pallet shortage. People are starting to buy Corona beer again.
This is the thing that I'm hearing too. A little bit in New Zealand saying, "Oh, everything's fine. Like, we just need to sort out the supply. We've got some supply chain issues. Like, once the supply chain issues are sorted, everything will be back to normal. We promise."
In media news, previously covered that Alan Jones was basically fired by Sky News Australia for being too much of a lockdown vaccine skeptic. He is going to be, we're told, replaced with, Piers Morgan's global News Corp show. So Alan today announced that he had signed with a new company, Australian Digital Holdings, founded by conservative businessman Maurice Newman, and his new show, Alan Jones Direct to the People, which, as its name suggests, is going to be streamed directly via Facebook and YouTube, starting next week, Monday to Thursday, starting Monday, December 13th. So we're all looking forward to it. Well, even though it's more competition for us on the streaming front, but Alan was never going to retire at even at age 80 with the immunocompromised issues that he has. He'll keep working till the day that he dies. Maurice Newman said that he wants to sign more people to his new platform, and we've seen this type of direct to the people strategy successfully rolled out by ex-mainstream media pundits in the US, such as ex-Fox News Bill O'Reilly and Megyn Kelly. So I'm sure that'll take off, and Alan Jones will be more unshackled than he has been previously.
Excellent, good pun there too. Yeah, cheers. Just pouring another gin here. We'll probably keep going for another 10 minutes or so with the last show of the year here before we take a 2-month break. For me, all right. I'll keep going for 10 more minutes. Just pouring another gin. I've got a question here from Dr. Foster asking about what do I think of Bombay Sapphire. One of my favorites, Bombay Sapphire, but I don't drink it very often because it's one of the more expensive ones. Well, it's slightly more expensive than the slightly cheaper stuff that I think is good. So, but definitely one of my favorites. We've got on the subject of the internet media or streaming media in Australia. New Zealand is also going to get a new media streaming service called The Platform, which will be started by Sean Plunkett. He was one of the presenters who was fired this year for, I can't remember what he got fired for, but we had about 3, slightly unorthodox. They would sometimes question the narrative just a little bit. Generally speaking, quite liberal though, and they all, were canned one by one. They are starting a new platform in either January or February next year called The Platform. So we are also getting something equivalent to what Alan Jones is doing, but for New Zealand, and we shall see how that goes. Whether or not it'll be any good will remain to be seen.
It certainly won't get some of the New Zealand government media university fund.
They won't be part of the team of $50 million for sure.
Yeah, or get access to Jacinda's press conferences, because as we saw, she shut down a dissenting journalist from the Counter spin-off, and she can't even handle hecklers on her Facebook Live.
That's right.
Amanda, I'm sorry you're over me, but you don't have to stay on my Facebook Live if I'm bothering you. I'm sure there's many other things you could do with your time that you find less irritating.
Amanda will
I can't believe you got
the SIS watch list immediately.
Yeah. Sorry, Amanda. It was nice knowing you. To have the a prime minister of like one of the probably largest, most powerful top G20 countries in the world succumb to a comment on a Facebook media live stream is both hilarious and horrifying at the same time.
Now move on to the sports report. WA's hard border policy has cost them the 5th Ashes test. Cricket Australia has now decided to award the 5th test to Hobart in Tasmania. Melbourne wanted a 2nd Ashes test. Canberra was also interested as well, but Hobart is going to host its first Ashes test. Also, Australia is going to be joining the US and a growing list of nations in taking part in a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. Yeah, I don't think New Zealand does. And of course, China is not happy that there's not going to be Australian diplomats in the crowd. They will pay. Ooh,
But please sell us more of your steel.
We've also had the Women's Tennis Association announce that their players are not going to play in China because of the disappearance of Chinese tennis player Peng Shi after she accused the vice premier of China of sexual assault.
In China, you don't Me Too. In China, you get Me Too'd, or however that works. So they do that a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I missed it during the gender report, but if you Me Too a federal government minister in Australia, the ex-lover of Education Minister Alan Tudge said there was an abusive aspect to their affair. He has stood aside while there's an independent investigation. That, of course, does not happen in communist China. So, but Peng Shi, apparently she's fine. So on social media, she says, "Yes, I'm very fine, and I've withdrawn the allegations, and here's me in some footage here. I'm very fine."
Yeah. Although Australia has been learning from the propaganda there in China with the Springs, was the Howard Springs camp with their basically advertising it with like softcore pornography over the internet.
Yes, what is that? The Howard Springs babes there, because
and then that's how they all advertise their propaganda, and then you see the photos behind the scenes, and it's like people being dragged away, and everyone in their full hazmat suits and people locked onto their balconies, and
Claire Lehman, the editor of Quillette, who won the 2020 Australian Libertarian of the Year for some reason, has been the #1 PR campaigner on Twitter for the Howard Springs quarantine camp. this meme has been doing the rounds here. I saw this on Luke Rudowski's Twitter. Stop calling it a concentration camp. It's just an Australian government-run facility where you're detained without trial, relocated by the military, and cannot leave when you want to, and be sued and arrested for trying to escape in the name of safety there. So Claire Lehman has said, look, it's just for people who can't isolate at home. You know, there's, Wi-Fi and Netflix there, and your food, like... this must be, I don't know, Claire Lehman's new, intellectual dark Ed Lloyd strategy. What is that?
That is the predictions. We've got the chat demanding predictions for 2020, 2020, what are we at? 2022 next year. So we're going to start here with our predictions for 2022. They're going to keep the camps going. We're going to go lockdown for winter again. And they'll come up with, we'll run out of Greek letters to name variants after, so we'll have to switch to something else. Not going to predict what it's going to be. And I don't know. I guess that's my starter for doomsday predictions.
For the moment, it's like, especially after they promised people, if you take the vaccines, things will go back to normal. They can't as yet sell full lockdowns. I mean, they were able to sell a short, sharp lockdown in Austria for 20 days. With the mandatory vaccination, that sort of is going to be like the new lockdowns, I think. If they since it's harder for them to sell lockdowns, that's going to be the new big stick, because Austria, after their lockdown, it's like, right, because there's too many unvaccinated people, it's going to be mandatory. Germany is also flirting with mandatory vaccination. Boris Johnson, when outlining his plan B or more distraction from his Christmas parties last year, has also said we need to have a conversation about mandatory vaccinations. And Dr. Fauci said that ideally we'd love everyone to be voluntarily vaccinated, but obviously being fully vaccinated, you're going to have to keep having a top up to be fully vaccinated. So I think that's going to be the more sellable strategy, in 2022 to continue to flatten the curve.
I don't think either of us, or perhaps even anybody in the chat, is willing to say that this will be over next year. I would have said that maybe a few months ago, but now I've been fully convinced by the conspiracy theorists, doomsdayers, that this will continue for all of next year.
Well, they'll still continue to be more variants that people will freak out on. On the Gold Coast, they found Omicron light this week from the Nigerian subvariant. This only has 14 mutations, not the 32.
But the good news about the Nigerian subvariant is that it does promise you a chance at $25 million if you respond with an email.
Yeah, the Nigerian Prince flu.
I'm going to cancel some of the predictions in the chat here. Tani saying that they'll switch to Chinese characters. Now, that's one thing that we can predict they won't do. Right? It's very hard to predict things that will not happen, but this is one thing we can predict that will not happen. They will not pick Chinese characters. It will be nothing to do with China whatsoever.
All they could
from
just
Amy,
do,
you have to have.
they could just do what they've been doing, is like, if they find out a variant is a subvariant of something, because we already have Omicron light, but there's also already Delta Plus.
Yeah, that's right. We could do that. Or plus.
Yeah, the South Park
heavy.
satirized the new Delta Plus rewards program variant. And probably variants of the future will have like 260 mutations, and so you'll need your seventh Pfizer booster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's it? There's also you've talked about monthly Pfizer subscriptions.
Yeah, the subscription, the Pfizer subscription. I'm not ready to predict that for next year, but it's certainly possible. With the UK talking about like three monthly, like someone somewhere might offer a monthly subscription. I'm just waiting for that to happen. And then I want to go back to the prediction from my wife here. She's saying that Luxembourg will get rolled for a woman. No, I'm I'm actually going to pour cold water on that one. He's like the perfect globalist NPC. I think he's perfect for the role. I think he's going to stick it out and replace Jacinda, because Jacinda will run out of steam. You know, they can't put enough of that. What's that stuff that they inject into the
hydra. What is that? The blood?
The blood, the magic blood that they harvest.
The baby's blood.
The altar. That stuff.
Hydro something. It's not really long. Yeah. it's another thing that, because it was on the cover of Newsweek this year, so Alex Jones was proven right.
Right. Again. Yeah. Okay. So that's why we'll stick with that. Anyway, eventually that stops working on people and they have to replace them. So you can write that one down too. That Luxon will stick it out.
Well, she's eyeing that. What is it? Secretary General of the United Nations, or what is it? Well,
and he'd help her. He'd help her get that. So I think.
And then when Luxon retires, be a member of the World Economic Forum, because if you're a communist, you go to the United Nations. If you're a globalist, you go to the World Economic Forum.
Okay. Yes, the chat has finally got there. Aderochrome. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Everyone got it at once.
That's apparently how US senators still manage to serve in their 80s and 90s.
Could be very well. Won't say no to that possibility. And the other, so that's predictions wise. I'm not sure I'd be willing to go any further with predictions. I don't know if we're seeing some issues of real economic trouble in some countries. It's hard to know who can fake it the longest. It's hard to predict like total global meltdown, because it happens when you least expect it, and it happens very quickly. Possibility. You can put that on the bingo card, but I won't commit to that. If you've got any other predictions, otherwise we can go to sort of the year in review, favorite moments.
Well, I've said my predictions that it's going to be if they can't solve the lockdowns to flatten the curve, the NPIs, non-pharmaceutical interventions, it'll just be endless booster jabs, like new variant, just jab. Like that's been the response. Was the initial response of the UK government? Just we don't know whether the vaccines work against Omicron, but we're just going to start jabbing people after 3 months. Like it makes sense.
All right. Highlights from this year. Difficult one. For me, I could do personal highlights rather than news highlights, or even lowlights, but could do news lowlights. I did have a good year. Spent a lot of the year spending my commute on a bike instead. Did a lot of e-biking while I could, and then being locked at home, working from home. On the whole, I've been spending more time with my family because of changes that I've made in my life this year. So that's going to be my big highlight for the year. Really, I think that's the only thing. And I've been doing a lot less writing and other commentary because of that, but I don't really regret any missing out on that. It's been a good year to do less commentary.
Are you talking about what's personal highlight for the year?
Yeah, any kind of review or highlight from the year. I just couldn't think of any decent news highlight, like any event outside of my own life that I would say is put that as a highlight. In terms of
like my own personal life, which I don't talk about on the show. Like throughout these, rolling lockdowns of the past 2 years, I've been one of the lucky ones. Is that my life hasn't been destroyed by the lockdowns, or I've never had a heartbreaking separation because of border closures or relationship breakdowns. That's why when you see like what I played the report before about that grieving family, like there's just so many sad stories like that. Like we're both been some of the lucky ones, even though we've had our freedoms and liberties completely destroyed along with everyone else's.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, certainly, and that's one of the things you could put in the lowlights is, I guess, all of the tragic stories that we've had this past year. it's not been.
Oh, and also, what is it? A highlight is that I didn't suffer an adverse reaction from the jab.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, maybe I might get one from the booster. Because we had I'll bring up the story now. One of the loudest critics of Dan Andrews' lockdowns has been former AFL player, now pub owner, Paul DiMattina. So he, at the end of last month, was rushed to hospital after having a suspected near-lethal reaction to the booster shot. And he was also, when he was in hospital, was also diagnosed with COVID. So went to the ICU either from COVID or the booster. We had already 2 doses. So he's out now, thank God. But yes, that's what happened to him after his booster.
Cool. Other
you're still a pure blood. So what is it? That's a highlight for you. You can have a pure blood Christmas party with 25 other pure bloods in Auckland. It's the thing is, especially with the 25, the legal limit in 25, and normally don't get more than 25 people together at one time anyway. So it's not, doesn't affect me personally in that way. Probably one of the other, thinking of highlights and lowlights as well, as in terms of obviously had the start of an actual kind of protest movement in New Zealand against this year. Last year, not so much. This year, there's actually been some more of it. And especially for me, when it comes to the religious arena and the church scene, some very, very disappointing actions and reactions from the church at large. Christianity in New Zealand at large is a tragic disappointment. There's a reason it's dying. The reason Christianity is dying in New Zealand, and you can see it now. Why? It's a judgment on the church in New Zealand, absolutely. But there have been some highlights too, in terms of some stuff happening. Generally speaking, not so much out in public, but there are some pockets of resistance and some people doing some very serious thinking for how to react now and in the future for when inevitably the next bad thing or the worst thing comes along. We are starting to see resilience built in for some people here, and there has. My wife is correcting me in terms of how many people I invite to parties. Shh! Don't tell the government that. Andrew Little is going to send another SWAT team.
Okay. So anyway, apparently my wife is capable of hosting far more people than I thought she was. So. There's another highlight. Anyway, so there, I think there are some positive things forming, some resilience that's forming. So there is some small light in the darkness in terms of what the future holds for New Zealand.
Well, at the end of 2020 in Australia, the pro-freedom movement, there was only a small dedicated group of activists, because everyone else in Australia thought, 2021 will be much better, just get the vaccine out and everything's back to normal. Of course, that was far from the case with rolling lockdowns. The New South Wales, the state where Gladys Berejiklian had said, we've got the systems in place, so we're never going to have to lock down again, and then put through Sydney 107-day lockdown. She said today on 2GB, Gladys Berejiklian, she's not going to run for the federal seat of Warringah. She's going to move on with her life and go to the private sector. She's still beloved despite subjecting her citizens to the lockdown. But yes,
like I said, people love their lockdowns. So will that change in 2022?
It has. Well, there has been a lot. The opposition to the rolling lockdowns did grow as they dragged on in 2021. The freedom rallies in Melbourne, in particular, there are no gathering limits now. There's hundreds of thousands every weekend attending the various freedom rallies there. They're even larger than the biggest communist protest in the city. There's
Yeah,
as
all right,
we
and that's
speak-
something. Yeah, that's a
As we-
really big positive for you.
Yeah, as we speak, there's a street side picnic takeover, anti-segregation picnic dinner happening at South Bank, and then on Sunday there's all these various freedom groups, and they've all learnt to get along now. Like there's less factionalism. There's some from the left and the right, but they've now learnt that there's a greater cause. And I don't care if someone's has really far left views, as long as they're for freedom. There's a Reclaim the Line rally on Sunday, 12 p.m. at Parliament House. So, and well, the pro freedom people, there's been a lot of people have said what have they achieved? Dan Andrews, because the lockdowns were becoming so unpopular, abandoned COVID zero, and now we're living with thousands of cases per day. Dan has said, we're not going to have an Omicron zero strategy. We've got to live with the variants as well, which that's a refreshing backflip from Dan, pardon the pun.
Yeah. Yeah, and in New Zealand, we're not quite there yet when it comes to that. As somebody in the chat pointed out, we're basically going to have an Omicron zero policy, instant lockdown.
If it does become the dominant strain, I mean, what is it? We've got about, nearly close to 50 cases in Australia over 2 weeks. Hopefully they lift the racist Southern African travel bans. That's the globalist next project for 2022. Basically, holding black and brown people down in Africa, force jabbing them to protect the world from variants.
That's right. We haven't jabbed enough Africans
Neo-colonialism.
Yet, so we're gonna. That's the 2022. The everyone jab Africa strategy. Because that's what's happened. They've
jab aid.
What we're going to be seeing in early 2022 here in New Zealand is we are now sending all of the Aucklanders out to seed COVID throughout the rest of the country. So you've had all these places that have been COVID free for 2 years. They've still got people wearing masks, and they have 50 people in their buildings, and their churches 50 people where are vaxxed only, all of this nonsense. And they haven't had a single COVID case in 2 years, and we are going to be able to spread the COVID love throughout all of New Zealand and just dump it on everyone.
Wearing masks. They were wearing masks in the New Zealand Parliament this week, and Jacinda lost her mask.
And so, sadly, there was no footage here, but Thomas Cool and the press gallery saw this. Chris Bishop raised a point of order, noting there was an MP not wearing a mask. It was Jacinda Ardern, who had lost hers, so she quickly put on Grant Robertson's mask, and he didn't have to wear one because he was speaking.
Ew,
so as you can see, our prime minister takes public health incredibly seriously, and she always thinks about safety first.
Cooties 19 there.
Yes, so there'll be a bit of a surprise for Robertson. Anyway, so you've got people throughout the country acting insane, psychotic, but they're now going to be given the gift of COVID for Christmas. So I hope they enjoy it.
There's less masks now in Melbourne. They're only mandatory in retail settings, public transport, aged care, and hospitals. They may be getting rid of the masks in retail settings on December 15th, along with the hospitality staff still have to wear them at the moment. That's the hospitality slave rules. The people enjoying themselves, they don't have to wear masks, but the peasants, slaves, servants, they have to wear the mask to show that they're subservient.
Yeah. There's one slightly good bit of news here. I was just thinking about how we're spreading COVID throughout New Zealand. The government has done a slightly good thing here, because if you're not vaccinated, you have to get a test to leave Auckland. But they've just announced that you can get a free antigen test at any local pharmacy. So you can turn up to your local pharmacy, get a free antigen test, and then you're good to go throughout New Zealand. So if you're unvaccinated, you won't be able to leave Auckland and spread COVID around the country, because you have to get an antigen test just before you leave. But if you are fully vaccinated, you can carry, because you don't have to do the test if you're fully vaccinated, so you can get COVID and just leave the city and spread it all around the country. So all of the people who are going to get infected with COVID will be infected by the fully vaccinated, because the unvaccinated are not allowed to spread it.
Well, that's part of the reason why I took the 2 jabs, is so I wouldn't be subjected to these constant poking and throat jamming. Thank God the anal swabs didn't take off.
But again, the rapid antigen test is not the lobotomy, so you're not allowed to you don't have to get the lobotomy tests.
But
still slight silver lining
for some travel, like
I guess so.
In South Australia, it's a PCR test costing the taxpayer $150 per test.
Well, I heard from somebody who's flying, talking about tourism. In order to get out of New Zealand, to get on the plane, you have to pay in $250 in New Zealand to get if you want to get a voluntary test for a flight, which you have to get on a flight. You pay $250 per person to get your test. So enjoy the rest of your tourism around. Whether it's tourists coming into New Zealand or tourists leaving New Zealand for Australia. I mean, that's not going to happen, right? Only people who are going to see family, going to some kind of emergency, they're going to fork out that kind of cash. They'll pay that tax, pay that fine, as it were, to go and see their family
and enjoy, wearing a mask on a 4 or 5 hour flight as well.
Absolutely. So tourism, and so there's another prediction for 2022. The tourism sector will be dead for sure. It's not coming back next year. There's not going to be any tourism next year. Possibly summer at the end of the year next year, but I would have predicted that last year, and it didn't happen this year. So I'm not going to predict it for next year because forget tourism. Yes, traveling by ship you can do. So there were some New Zealanders who were so fed up with MIQ they actually took a sailing boat. So some people chartered or hired a sailing boat. Boat people, yes, the boat people came from Australia to New Zealand, spent 2 weeks on the ocean, took it slow, and arrived safe and sound in New Zealand just to avoid the MIQ. So certainly there is the option of being boat people.
Yeah, Australia has not got a date for when it's going to fully open to the world, which includes tourists. So what is it? Scott Morrison, after National Cabinet, said this afternoon that they're going to get more modelling from the Doherty Institute about what Phase D looks like of the national plan, and we know how accurate modelling has been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many waves are we going to get to in 2022? Last chat. I just see we're at an hour and a half now. Any last questions? I mean, I'm happy to stick around for a little bit longer.
Any final super chats?
I have kept an eye on the Odyssey chat tonight as well. We don't get very many people on there, but just to remind you for next year as well, the Odyssey stream is always live as a backup for YouTube. So we do our best to support Odyssey there. And still, I find that they're fairly usable and stable. So that's another possible shift in 2022.
Has improved as well. They've got an interface now. There's not the endless processing. I still haven't. I know a lot of people are on Rumble now. That's big over for the US people. But I haven't uploaded anything into it.
It's the neocon platform for Americans. But there are actually New Zealand. I know some of the freedom groups in New Zealand use Rumble a fair amount. So it might take off. So
he has his show on it.
We're only going to see more growth next year when it comes to these alternative platforms. I don't think metaverse is going to be a big thing. We'll see what happens there. I don't know if Facebook is gonna do much. They're obviously same thing with Twitter with their new emperor. It's going to get a lot worse out there in terms of people being banned and finding ways around that. The alternatives will only grow. Whether or not they're going to get kind of critical mass, we'll see. But they'll continue to improve. I mean, we had huge improvements this year in terms of the alt tech, alt media stuff. I mean, Andrew Torba on Gab had a massive year. Platforms like Odyssey didn't exist at the beginning of the year. I believe Rumble may not have. I don't believe so. Not at the end of the year. And that's a good prediction for next year to see those platforms grow. And Telegram is the big one. I did not thinking
It's
like at the
blocking
beginning of the year.
iOS and Android apps are blocking more channels though.
They are, so you'll see more of that. But the thing being is they stay up on those, they stay up available on those platforms for common, to get more access, to get more people on them, because it is just a messaging chat backwards and forwards. And then obviously, even if you get blocked in terms of, from the App Store, from the Android store, more and more of that content via their web interface, via their APKs, via their OS downloads, there are ways to work around that while still using Telegram. Like so far, Telegram has been very well committed to that. So, yeah. So they're basically able to build up a platform that like normal people can use for chatting, and also the people can build non-approved communities on by keeping it on the same platform. So.
The last Australian has said, what is it, next big move by the elite? We know that Bill Gates has been talking about possible smallpox outbreaks. What is a smallpox lab leak in, I think, near Illinois? And then there was a return traveller from Nigeria who arrived in Maryland with monkeypox. So I don't know, because they're already talking about, we need to be prepared, World Health Organization, for the next pandemic. And that's why we need all these quarantine camps.
Yeah,
Who has called for a global pandemic management pact?
Mm-hmm. Forget migration. We just need a permanent pact. Possible war in Ukraine. We've been talking about war in Ukraine for a long time.
Yeah, or South China Sea as well. It seems to be the globalists, they're more keen with about war with Russia than, countering Chinese aggression, it seems.
And again, I think a war with Russia is a hype in the same way that a war with China is a hype. Obviously, the military industrial complex wants a war, but currently they're waging a war against us, so they might be happy with that.
Well, the national
pandemic,
the
pandemic is the new war, so I think they might. I don't necessarily see a big war. I mean, obviously, a war can happen anytime. Small conflicts will continue to build up. You may see skirmishes and whatnot, but in terms of full blown war, they don't really need a war because they've got one right now. So.
All right, we'll wrap it up now. We've gone right into overtime, but it's your last show for the year, Dieuwe. Thanks again for co-hosting this show with me, albeit on a fortnightly basis. And we invited Stephen Berry into the Trad Tasman Talk family, which has been going quite well. He'll be the final Trad Tasman Talk for the year will be next Friday with Stephen. You're taking some time off for the summer. What is it? What would you call it? What is it? Boarded up Auckland summer.
Well, I'm not really boarded up in that way, because we can't leave the city. We can go around and do some of the things that we want to do, get a little bit more creative. We can still spend time with family and friends. We can enjoy the outdoors to a certain degree. Obviously, the Department of Conservation in New Zealand has said their huts and other facilities are vax only. So you've got to get a little bit more, get a bit more creative. But I'm going to enjoy the summer and take some time off. And there may be one more video. I saw a question earlier on about a video from Amy and I, which we may do one before the end of the year. That is still on the cards. We'd like to do some more of that, but due to circumstances, we haven't been able to. We started doing videos, and then we locked down, and everything changed. So and certainly in the new year, I'd like to do some more of that. Do some more content in New Zealand. Certainly, it's on the list. But I've enjoyed joining this Friday night show, and it's worked a lot. Worked very well for me fortnightly this year. So I'm keen to keep doing that.
Yeah, Amy, as she's continued to be supportive of the show. Your other half, people haven't seen before the show. She make sure that your beard's intact as well as your hair.
She does that absolutely. Amy's my number one fan. She's been here for almost every show. I really appreciate that from her. And she points out here as well, the army has lost 1,000 soldiers. It's most based Chad soldiers, because those who wouldn't, go along with the vaccine tyranny, basically the ones who didn't want to, destroy their souls watching MIQ, those guys are all gone. Over 1,000 of them. We've got, just in Auckland alone, we have over 1,000 vacancies in the nursing hospital sector. So, due to the vaccine mandates, they've wiped out, a lot of really good people. We're seeing some towns where the media is reporting that the ambulance may not get to you because they don't have enough paramedics to man the ambulances. The fire truck might not come to your house because they haven't got enough firemen, because they just fired them all. Because it's better that your house burned down than you accidentally get.
And if your house does burn down, make sure you exit your house COVID safe. Make sure you sanitize your hands and wear a mask. Same if your home is flooded.
Yeah. So it's just absolutely evil, horrible stuff that the government's doing, and that they've committed to doing this to purging out people who question their motives and their mandates. So you must show your vaccine passport before they'll come and put the fire on your house out. Before the ambulance will pick you up, you get a scan, you get to have your COVID app scan. It's coming in 2022.
The firefighters, they're risking their life to put out your house fire, but getting COVID is way worse than potentially burning to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right. I'm afraid there's not been too many upbeat white pills for the next year, but
apart from the growing freedom movement.
Yeah, that's certainly it. Is how do you say it? Metal, precious metals forged in fire. That maybe that's the white pill to finish the show on, to finish the year on.
Yeah, Bitcoin is it's proving itself once again. Just as stable as gold, as the money printing presses. Well, they'll be going all. There'll be as much money in the world as there is rolls of toilet paper.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We can use the money as toilet paper. Bitcoin. We need a Bitcoin prediction for next year. This year we had immense growth in Bitcoin. Currently we're down about 25% from the all-time high, which is nice. Bitcoin does it. It really shoots up and overshoots its value and drops back down and stabilizes. It climbs up over time. So I'm expecting next year is going to be an incredibly good year for Bitcoin, an even better year than this one was. So, and the dips are always good because you can never have enough Bitcoin and you need the dips to pick up some more. So, definitely been a really good Bitcoin year, and I've got a lot of people into Bitcoin. People who've just come to me and asked about Bitcoin as well, and I've gotten more serious about it too. Been hodling a bit since like 2016, but not really paying too much attention to the rises, the what they call the bull markets and the bear markets, and but I'm paying a lot more attention now that we're seeing mainstream adoption. It's getting to the point where you've got these big organizations who are looking at this saying, I don't want to miss the boat on this, and that's nice. I like that. American midterm predictions. Republicans. I reckon the Republicans can pick up a majority in the House and Senate.
Yeah, I reckon they'll sweep the House and the Senate, and they'll sweep the gubernatorial races as well. I mean, Virginia and New Jersey were just the gubernatorial races were just a preview because like obviously there's the states that are lost causes like California, New York, Oregon, and Washington. But there's still so many sane Americans who do not want their children masked in school or their children taught critical race theory.
Yeah, there is a little bit of the pendulum system in America too, where if the if you got a Republican president, you get the Democrat wave, and if you got a Democrat president, you get a Republican wave. They kind of go backwards and forwards, much like in New Zealand, where often there's not much of a difference between National and Labour, not much of a difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. But you've got a lot more of these, proper populist Republicans that come up, Christian nationalists, and some really good, you get some really good people in there, and some doozies too sometimes. But they actually can get good people in, and they can actually build up a bit of a movement. So interesting things can happen in America that can't really happen here because of the way their political system is built. Regarding Roe v. Wade, very black pill on Roe v. Wade always. The truth about Roe v. Wade is that the court needs Roe v. Wade for its legitimacy, effectively. They've always supported Roe v. Wade. Every time it's come up for review, it's been in a majority Republican court. Every single time the Republican majority court has affirmed Roe v. Wade.
6-3 Supreme Court. Yeah.
But last time it was a 7-2 Republican support for Roe v. Wade. This was in the late 90s. I think it was a very serious. It was a really big. I think Casey something v. Casey.
Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Yeah,
Casey versus Planned Parenthood. It was 7 Republicans for, 1 Republican, and 1 Democrat against. So there was only 1 Democrat on the court that time, and he voted against it. He was the original one who voted against it the first time. Who voted against Roe v. Wade was still on the court at that time, and the only Republican who voted against it was.
Clarence Thomas,
Clarence Thomas. He's the only one. Clarence Thomas at the time, because I don't believe Scalia was on the court. So Clarence Thomas is the only member of the court who has ever voted against Roe v. Wade. So unless he can pull these milquetoast losers with him, it'll be upheld. Whether he can do some magic, who knows? It's not. It's.
As we've seen,
I do not see it overruled.
With some of the Republican-appointed justices, as we've seen, they tend to mellow into liberals, like Chief Justice John Roberts, who's basically part of the liberal wing now.
But there's a real movement happening in America that started in Oklahoma, the abolitionist movement that basically will use states as use legislation in state. What do they call them? State congresses or state houses, where they can nullify Roe v. Wade. So they can actually pass laws that will make Roe v. Wade obsolete in their states and say that it should be ignored. And so if they can actually chalk up a big victory, that could destroy Roe v. Wade at the state level. So the mainstream pro-life movement refuses to nullify Roe v. Wade because they'll be like, oh, that's like, insurrection or something. But there's a more hardcore group of Christians in some of these Republican states that are willing to go against the pro-life establishment and actually say, no, we're going to nullify Roe v. Wade and actually say, okay, we're going to ban it in this state. No matter what Roe v. Wade says, we're going to nullify it. And if you want to send in like the National Guard and just take over the state, like, bring your guns, come at it. So there's a possibility of interesting things happening in America that just cannot happen in New Zealand and Australia. So.
We won't take any more of your questions, Origin, but thank you so much for being such a active viewer of the show, and also the voiceover man. We should give a special shout out to our dedicated fans, viewers throughout the year. Dawn Browning, she does her best to tune into every show live. Colin Penfold as well. Clark He, who's also been a regular super chatter. We've also
to all of you.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know. Yeah, Tare. We've played a few of his videos on the show as well. Granny Annie, you've also been a dedicated fan as well. Savage Nobles, Merry Peasants, you're a very youthful, eccentric fan. always
that's so flattering of you. Oh yes. So anyway, Amy has said Origin is to stop asking questions because I need to wrap this up and these memes.
Thank you for that, Amy.
So I want to say to Origin though, call me, and we're going to do a podcast before the end of the year. It's the one other thing I will do. So we'll answer your questions on that. He can help me answer the questions.
Dr. Foster, 1968. He's also been, well, he's what is that? The pronunciation expert. Was he the one that was saying we were butchering the Greek alphabet pronunciation?
Yes, you're butchering the Greek alphabet. You're butchering my name. You butcher a lot of things. But sorry, I've had some off-air conversations with Tim about his pronunciation, and he's not going to fix it. So you have to deal with the Australianness, the future of the Australian accent.
But it said right in the what is it, the voiceover. Origin pronounces your name right in the voiceover now.
Yeah, he does. So that's been fixed. So.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a merry Christmas and enjoy a Christmas party. We know that there are plenty of health fascists who want to, well, especially in the UK, cancel Christmas because it's going to be a super spreader event. It's going to be a super spreader event of love and human connection. So
yeah,
enjoy your Christmases and New Year. We hope that our doom predictions don't come to pass, but we're realists. So, but please enjoy what you can this summer, and we'll see you most likely in the two of us together in the new year. But Trad Tasman Talk with Stephen next week. I pronounced his name right, didn't I, Stephen?
Yeah, that one's right. Again, from me as well, a big thank you from me to everyone who watches the show and contributes in some way. Really enjoy doing it, and really enjoy seeing all of the comments in the chat. I do read all of them, even if we don't, read them all out every show. We do really appreciate all of that, and it always amazes me how many people enjoy enjoy me talking about whatever, writing about whatever. Sometimes I'll write some things up and I'll show it to one person, and they'll get all excited about these things, and that never ceases to amaze me. So I really, really do appreciate all of the support.
All right. Good night, everybody. Stay safe and stay sane.
Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Trad Tasman Talk. To keep up with the latest real news and analysis from the Tasman nations, visit theunshackles.net and rightminds.nz.